Got my nice microphone here. Oh, shoot. I'm killing everything here. Look at that. I'm just wrecking everything. My setup is so expensive, and I'm ready to break it all in 1 second. Jeez. All right. We are live again, waiting for some people to come through, but I don't see many. I see Twitter warriors, but no one's coming in, but that's all right. That's all right. We are about to go live. No, wait. We are live. And with that being said, we're just going to just want to get right to it. You know what? Let's hit the intro. Let's go. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, it's me. I can't do it. I can't. You have my hat on. That's it. That's it. It's gone. Sorry.
I'm a fan.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the big bad booty daddy. That's what it is right now. That's what I am today. All right. J Harv trying to steal my freaking thunder with my freaking, it's my merchandise, but that's all right. He's supporting Team Beast, but that's all right. We are here with the Unleashed podcast, and we have a very, very, very hot topic today, and I'm kind of torn, and I'll get into that a little bit later, but we had a whole bunch of people commenting on this topic, and we open the forum as usual to bring people in and talk about it. Again, not argue about it, talk about it. We're having a discussion right now. We want to talk about the situation because it is a touching situation to a lot of people worldwide. And again, we have Harv here. How you doing, Harv?
I'm good. Beautiful, as always.
I see you have great internet now. That's great.
Yeah, man.
That's great.
I had to get my own connection.
Way to upgrade.
Sorry about all the past weeks, man. It's just
all right. It's all right.
I had to step out on my own. I had to do my own Bobby Brown thing.
Jeez.
I had to get my own internet.
You know what happened to Bobby, right? He got kicked out, so you better watch it.
He's back. He's back, and I'm going to the show April 7th.
With New Edition?
New Edition, yeah. New Edition, wow. Jodeci, and Charlie Wilson. They're all going to be here in Tampa.
Right. New Jack Swing. All right. So we're here, and I have an amazing friend of mine. When I say amazing, I mean I've known this man for a very long time. Now, we haven't talked like this in a while, but we have stayed close for a very long time. He's a high school friend of mine. He is a track star. He is an educator. This guy's a legend in my world right now. This is a man I respect for a long time. Goes by the name of Salem. Mr. Johannes, aka, I remember when he told me that, he told me, it's just Salem John. What do you mean John? Well, that's what Johannes is. It means John. I'm like, really?
Can't remember. You can't believe you remember this after all that.
I remember everything. Listen, when it comes to memories and people that have crossed my path, that conversation has stayed in my head forever. Like I said, that's when I first introduced myself and got to know you and was learning about the people around in the school. And I'm like, man, that name is long, because I thought my name, Tolkienbo is a name you don't hear, but then you hear Johannes. I'm like, then you said, hey, you know what? Don't worry. It's just like a regular John. Just call me John. I'm like, wow. Okay. No problem. So we're here. Again, the topic is hot. And here's the topic. Transgender athletes in society today. And everybody, I think, should know by now about the recent, NCAA swimmer athlete by the name of, I believe, Leah Thomas.
Thomas, yes, sir.
Leah Thomas, formerly, I believe, William? Formerly so. William Thomas, right? And she, again, I'm going to respect her because, again, she is identifying as a woman now. So she won the NCAA swimming championship this past month. And I guess the internet blew up. And they had every right to, because it was something that was new. I mean, we've dealt with transgender athletes I guess, competing. But the fact that you know what, the fact that this person won a championship and took away spots that other women could be in kind of hurt a lot of people's feelings and kind of attacked the whole transgender community about how it is not fair for someone who was biologically born a certain gender is now allowed to compete in another gender's categories in certain competitions and contests and so forth. I can go back to the Olympics when there was a transgender weightlifter that kind of raised eyebrows about competing in the women's powerlifting competition. And again, everybody was up in arms, but the Olympics let it happen. So when I saw that, I'm like, if the Olympics is letting it happen, then why can't we let it happen? Like in terms of just regular, situations such as the NCAA or basketball, hockey, whatever. And then it came to me like, I think the only reason why the Olympics let it happen is because, well, that person really wasn't a name for themselves. They really weren't looking to do damage, I think, at the Olympics. Now, fast forward to the person who now, I'm not sure if they broke any records. I don't have the stats for that yet, but they went in and they smashed the NCAA title. And I saw a picture of first, second, and third. And I'm telling you, second was all right, but third place was pissed. She did not smile for that picture at all. So, I mean, we're going to talk about it right now. I'm going to start with you, Harv. You're in the States there. You know a lot about, and you live in a state that is quite open to the I guess the choice of being transgender or so forth. Give me your take on that first before we jump in with Salam.
Actually, we are not.
Really?
Our governor signed a bill last June. Remember me and you talked about it. We talked about it. He signed a bill in last June that transgenders cannot compete in the opposite sex sports. Right. So what actually got everybody up in arms was the timing. One, June is Pride Month.
Right.
So the timing of it was not good. And I think the other thing that people were speaking on is, why do you have to pass this bill? Like, there's really not enough transgender athletes in the state of Florida that you would have to pass a bill to keep them out of sports.
Okay.
All right. So the same, so obviously he came out, what was it, Friday? I think Friday he came out and said that the girl in second place actually was should
winner.
Be the official winner.
Right.
And
I remember I did show you that article again. Yeah.
But what boggles my mind is how much he got cheered for his sentiment, right? But yet these are the same people that when Colin Kaepernick and every other athlete speaks up, LeBron James speaks up, they say, don't bring politics into sports. First thing they say. But yet you jeer a politician that's making these rules. Like,
yeah, I remember that. I remember the comment about shut up and dribble, right?
Yep, the whole shut up and dribble, and Colin Kaepernick, he's mocking the government. He's taking the knee. He shouldn't make this a political thing.
Right.
We watch sports on Sunday so we can get away from all this stuff.
Right.
And here you cheer someone that actually does the exact same thing that you didn't want. Now, did you not want it because it was African American athletes that were bringing politics into sports?
You're already raising eyebrows already. Ooh. So you're saying it was more of a racially charged demand in terms of when they were talking, when the issue of LeBron and Colin Kaepernick and all these other athletes were speaking up. You think because of their race that they really were told to kind of just settle
No,
down?
they were literally told to shut up and dribble.
Yeah, I don't want to keep on repeating it. It's a pretty much insulting thing to say, but I hear what you're saying. You're saying because of their background, they didn't want to really pay them any mind. And I mean, you can look at that and say, yeah, you're right, because they're the ones. They were the top. Well, we'll say it. LeBron is the top athlete, pretty much in the world for the Black community that people kind of magnate to. They talk of LeBron, they talk about basketball, they talk about movies, they talk about everything. So when he came out and said, hey, his stance on the whole situation with the Black Lives Matter movement, I did remember. I'm not sure the anchor woman's name, but she was the one that said on live TV to shut up and dribble, and it took everybody back. On Twitter, on social media, they were just shocked. But now you're saying, fast forward, you're telling athletes to stay out of politics, and now you have politicians step in, putting their foot down when it comes to sports and making rules and regulations and policies, and you're thinking that's pretty much a double standard to what was being said months, even years ago. Yeah, so I get what you're saying. I do get you what you're saying. Let's tap in with my good friend Salam right now, and let's hear your thoughts on the whole topic in terms of the transgender in society situation.
Okay, so let me give you a little background on myself. In university, I can't remember what year, I was rooming with, I was in a house. So I went to University of Toronto, which is downtown Toronto. I was rooming in a house with 5 other people. And at one point, one of my roommates, Rob, came to me and goes, I need to tell you something. This is 20 years ago, 20 or so.
Yeah.
And basically came out as transgender. So like at the time, it was referred to as male to females trans. Now they would be referred to as a trans woman, right?
Okay.
Similar to Leah Thompson. And then subsequently, from living with eventually be Lenore. Lenore was probably one of the was a PhD candidate, was a smart person, was self-aware. And then I ended up living with someone else named Jenny, who was also trans. So I've been aware of trans issues much longer than most people.
Okay.
And so that's kind of just to give you a little bit of background. One of the things I've noticed, and this is, I think, Jules kind of raised it, was there's a lot of hypocrisy when it comes to this. Like, why do you care whether or not someone wins a university competition in swimming, for instance? Why should a politician care? And a lot of this topic, and you can see this from both angles, you can see from the lack of people who were saying something in the YouTube comments but didn't want to come on. Hell, I'm very confident with what I want to say. I'm very clear. I can usually thread the needle pretty well. You've seen me debate on
100%.
Like 100%. I have no issues. I can do it. But even I was like, whew, this is gonna be like if this gets out, will I be in trouble? Like that thought occurred to me. Now I'm like, well, I'm not gonna say anything that will cause me trouble.
Right.
But the huge thing that I've noticed about this whole topic is no one wants to touch it. Not just this one, but also like intersex athletes and so forth. Like I know people who how do I say this without giving anything away? People who talk for a living or do more are more well known,
right?
Who wouldn't touch some of this stuff because
they're afraid of the backlash,
right? Right, because it's a charged topic, right? Like the right uses it as a kind of some sort of flag to kind of go against the left, and then Far on the left, there's a lot of people on Twitter who say a lot, and there's a lot of people in the middle who maybe don't quite fall in one or the other, who don't really want to say too much. So
Right.
I think there's a huge problem with all of it, especially since in sports, when people say like take the politics out of sports, I'm like, do you know the history of sports? Like Jesse Owens in Berlin, you don't think that was political, right?
You don't think Ali was political?
Right.
Exactly, right? Like Tommy, the podium.
Tommy Smith.
Thank you.
Tommy Smith. Yeah.
All three of them, actually. Not, like the two who raised their fists and the Australian who gave him the idea. He never ran for Australia again. He's still the record holder for the 200. He never ran another race for Australia again after that. Right? So when people say it's like take the politics out of sports, I think they're lying straight up or forgetting. So
they don't know they really don't know the history about how sports does affect or is a window to opening the door for I guess politics in terms of just the eyes on certain topics.
Yeah, sports is part of society. How could you say what is politics? Politics is how we all run our lives.
Yeah. How we govern ourselves.
How we govern our, what do we do? Like,
Right.
How do you say then take this particular thing and devoid it of everything else? Like the last time, I'm not a historian, but the last time politics and sports were actually separate was the original Olympics, when they would literally stop wars to have the Olympics.
Right.
Ain't nobody stopping the Ukraine-Russia thing so that some people can compete in like some sports events.
Right. It's past that now. And it's kind of sad though, because Olympics, sports in general it still brings people together. Both, not both, but we'll talk about the Super Bowl in the States. Is one of the biggest events in North America. You talk about the Olympics, it's one of the biggest events in the world. Same with the World Cup. People will stop their lives, even take time off their lives of work and track their country's progress in a certain event, in certain sport, and so forth. That's how much sport is to us. So when politicians say, hey, back away, we got this, we're going to make the rules, that's a bit of an insult, because again, all the world's eyes are on sports, no matter if they're winning or if they're losing. There's some stories that have come through sport that just are touching. I forget the 400-meter runner I'm not sure if he's from the States or I think he was in the state, who pulled a hamstring running in the Olympics.
Yeah, his dad came out to help him.
His dad came out. That was one of the most touching moments you'd ever see in sport, right? And it made everybody watch, and that's probably one of the most popular clips I've really seen Olympic wise, in terms of just flat out just non-sports related. It's a touching moment, right? Or then you have people who are trying to go for certain records. Usain Bolt, Phelps, all these guys are going for certain things. People will watch to see them either fail or succeed, and all eyes are on these people. That's what sports does. It brings people to watch. So why not let people just watch? Don't dictate why or what people do in this sport. Just enjoy the sport, right? Just enjoy the sport. Now let's dig deep on the whole transgender situation. Now, we did have.
Can I add a point of clarity?
Oh, for sure.
I think this goes without saying, but when we say, can transgendered athletes compete in the other gender, like if they were born male, that can they compete against women after transition? It's only trans women we're talking about competing against women.
Yeah. And
right?
I was going to touch on that too.
Yeah.
No one ever says, do trans men, can they compete against men? Because they can if they want. Hell, women can compete against men.
But okay,
if they want. But
you brought a great point up. But let's cut the whole transgender situation out. And I get it. We have different leagues for different genders. However, again, I've done the research. I've watched sports for a very long time. There have been women who have played in men's leagues. They've never said boo about it.
Yes, because
There was Quebec
this is the
goalie.
thing. So this is the thing about sports that I think we like when we're talking about this, we need to be clear.
Mhm.
There's an open category, and then there's a women's category. To be
Yeah.
more precise.
Yeah.
So if, for instance, there was a woman who had like met all the criteria, and I won't get into the whole like testosterone levels thing, but
Right.
they can somehow compete against the men in any sport.
Right.
They would be and are allowed to compete, right?
Correct.
They are. Now it gets a little dicey with the Olympic sports because they specifically separate them, but you
Right.
can. It just doesn't happen because, like say track, except for the marathon, like all the women's world records, let's say,
Right.
would even qualify to compete in the Olympics, right? So that's not even like a
even close.
consideration,
Yeah.
right? Like it's just two different levels of competition, right?
Correct.
So what we're talking about is like, can trans women who lived as like men at some point
Mhm.
compete against women?
Correct. And so again, like I said, a lot of people are saying, "Oh, it's one way." Yeah, it's only being brought up. It's only being an issue because there's a lot of women who are really taking offense of this because they're thinking that their dreams are being stolen. So we had Leah Thompson who did win, and then again, I posted the whole conversation out there, and the people were up in arms about it. Now, the first few were kind of stating the fact that I was posting something that was transphobic. Now, for the record, I've never stated my claim about what side I would ever be on in terms of this topic. I've never done that. I've never really chosen a side. I've always been pretty neutral, and this forum has helped me to be more neutral and has opened my eyes in terms of things I've seen, heard, read, and I've been educated by a lot of people when doing this show. So I do appreciate the people having an open mind when it comes to this show. With that being said, a lot of people were really bothered that Leah Thomas was able to compete, and they think because the biological difference of men and women are there from the beginning of time, this should not be happening. Jules, do you think? Okay, go ahead, Salam.
I would disagree with that statement only because it's from puberty.
Okay, so from puberty is when everything starts to change.
Yes.
Okay. I've stand corrected then. From puberty. Okay, and now that's again another touchy subject because a lot of people hit puberty different times in their lives. So,
Yeah, but I mean, the timing of puberty is not the relevant part. It's the fact that they hit it, right?
okay.
Like girls on average say hit puberty a little earlier than boys. But when puberty hits is when like girls start to fill out, the secondary sex characteristics come out and all that stuff, right? That's when the testosterone for boys really shoots up. Right. Like that's when it like pretty early on, like teenage boys have more testosterone than most adult women.
Okay. Well, let's start with you, Jules. What's your take on the swimming situation?
Well, first of all, let me clear something up. Is if you don't agree with trans women competing in sports, that does not make you transphobic. It's because when you specifically speak on sports generally is about fairness.
Correct.
So I've actually posted the topic in one of the groups, and this is what I got. Absolutely no one gave a fuck about swimming before. Men don't deserve a podcast. You literally have nothing to offer.
Sorry, who?
Wait, sorry. Say that again. Wait a minute.
Men don't deserve podcast. You literally have nothing to offer. Okay.
Some people again, when it comes to conversation, people get ignorant. And I don't get it. Why do people turn ignorant when it comes to just posting something about something? You did not take a side in that comment, did you not? When you're
Oh
posting?
no, and of course, even through since we first posted it, I never gave any clue on what my thought process was, because I wanted to do more. I wanted to do more research myself before I could even speak on it. Just like we do with every other subject that we've spoken on.
Right.
So no offense, but I don't, you as a straight heterosexual male, have anything good or insightful to offer to the conversation. It's just to stir up the pot, add a hatred rhetoric for what? Question mark. It's always a sensitive topic for LGBT individuals. Just don't. So of course, that's the person that I have to go after. I have to go after that person. And my thing is, well, that's the definition of prejudice. You're already prejudging anything that you think I'll say just because I am a heterosexual male. And with that thought process that I should only listen to other heterosexual males for their opinion. So women don't matter. The kids don't matter. No one matters other than other heterosexual males by that person's opinion.
That's what they're thinking that you're saying.
No. They're telling me that my point doesn't matter because I am a heterosexual male.
So you can only comment on heterosexual male issues.
Correct.
Oh.
So I, of course, I had to go at that one.
Okay.
So when we talk about sports in general, you just talk about fairness, and you just want to make sure that everyone has an equal start and or an equal playing field.
Right.
So as a heterosexual male, can I say that I know how it feels to be transgender? Absolutely not. But I can speak on the aspect of sports.
Right.
And sports is built off of no one knowingly getting a competitive edge. And that's what we're looking at right now when it comes to male to female transitioning. So then someone else sends me an article and says, well, let me give you some times. And then she proceeded to give me times of when William competed in an event and when Leah competed in an event. 5 different events. And each time it was slower. So her thought process was, it makes no difference. This person's just not a good swimmer. Now, mind you, she's transitioning. So she actually proved that point, that from him transitioning from a male to a female, he was getting slower.
Okay. Now that is I'm trying to ask the question here correctly. Were they physically changing their biological concept or composition in terms of taking pills or taking things to change their body?
Correct.
Okay.
We're
So
talking
you're
about
saying
Thomas?
Yes.
So with that being said, now you're saying now that this person is pointing out that no matter what event or what sport or whatever, if you're transitioning, you will be now changing your DNA to match the gender that you're choosing to be with. Is that correct?
That's my point. Her point was, she was just saying that he's just a crappy swimmer. Because he's getting slower.
Yeah, that does.
Okay,
But mind you, he's getting slower because he's transitioning.
Yeah.
Okay.
They're taking testosterone blockers, basically.
Correct. So she actually proved a point, not her point. You know what I'm saying?
She proved against your point. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
And then, so when it comes to everyone that says that as a heterosexual male, you have no opinion. Well, if you listen to the opinion of probably the most popular transgender male to female, Caitlyn Jenner, actually is against trans men to women competing in women's sports.
Yeah, he was a like when he was a dude, he was a world record holder in the decathlon. He was
Yes.
considered the greatest male athlete of his time.
He was an American hero.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
now, and the thing is, the world has now accepted Caitlyn Jenner for who she is. It has nothing to do with sport.
Mhm.
This is the choice that they made. Now,
Correct.
that person is still the same person on the inside, like in terms of just their mental makeup. So when that person says, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, I don't agree with the male transitioning to female in competing in female sports," I will definitely back what that person's saying, because they've already transitioned. They see the unfairness of this matter,
Correct. Caitlin
right?
literally said, even though she's not a fan of Ronnie D, that he's actually correct. That the female that finished second should be the winner of that particular race.
Okay.
So
and,
as
Now,
and if I can add to like just a couple of points to that,
Mhm.
the biggest problem I find with this whole talk is that we talk individual numbers to compare groups. What I mean by that is this: like let's take height. I gave this example in your Facebook post. Let's
Mhm.
take height. On average, men are taller than women. Most men are taller than most women, right? Just because you can find one exception where one woman is taller than 99% of men does not mean that on average men aren't taller, or that
Correct.
men don't have a height advantage.
Right.
And so you can't look at one, like, it doesn't matter whether Leah Thompson broke the women's world record or not,
Mhm.
because her time is an individual time in a range of times. And the thing is this, right? Like, having competed in sports, like I was like, at best, like my best result was, I think, in the 2008, I was fourth in the like 10,000 meter Olympic trials. It sounds better than it is. My best result is like 31st in Canada in cross country, right? At no point, even though Canada has 30 to 35 million people, only 30 people could have run faster than me in that cross country 10K, let's say.
Mhm.
Right? At no point was I like breaking the women's world record. Okay.
Okay.
But if I transitioned, does that mean I wouldn't have had an advantage? Of course I would. That's like, just because I'm not better than every single woman that's ever existed doesn't mean that that like the men don't have an advantage. That's not how it works, right? We're not judging individuals. Like, they could, like, the world's best, like right now Canada has a 5,000 meter woman, Gabriella Stafford.
Mhm.
She's ranked third or fourth in the world right now. There are maybe 30 guys in Canada who can beat her in the 5K. Okay? What that means is even the guys who train all the time can't beat her, right? That doesn't mean that men don't have an advantage because she can beat most men. Like, that's not
Correct.
how it works, right?
Right.
We're not comparing one individual time and saying this is what this means. Like, that's a preposterous thing, because how do we know that Leah Thomas was like just below average or above average? It doesn't matter, because if she broke the record, if she didn't break the record, that doesn't mean that men don't have an advantage. We're not judging individual performances and then calling that an advantage. We're judging a group of people and saying men on average are faster than women, so women should have their own categories and compete only against women. That's all we're doing, right? We're not.
Yeah.
We can't look at one time and go, well, this means that this, right? Like, there was articles talking about how Leah Thomas slowed down by around 3%, right?
Okay.
Which makes sense, because you're having testosterone blockers, right? Like, I'm in my 40s now. Like, my testosterone has dropped. What I used to easily do 20 years ago is a struggle for me right now, right? Like, because I have less testosterone. Does that mean that I didn't gain all the benefit? Like, and this is the other problem with this conversation, and this is why Kylie Jenner was against it, is like, getting there is as important as being there. And what I mean by that is, like, testosterone is a training hormone, essentially, or a training drug if you're cheap, right?
Mhm.
It's not getting you. It's like if you're at the 100 meters, you don't inject yourself with testosterone and run faster. Is that you do it every day so you can train harder, so you
Mhm.
can improve because it improves all the stuff. So all the improvements that you have from the time that you are a dude to the
I'm
time you
still
stop don't magically disappear. Like if
right.
you transition tomorrow, Tunde, your muscles wouldn't magically disappear. And in fact, there's studies like that show, and I was looking at it today just to get ready. It's like
Mhm.
up to 3 years after trans
Transition.
take hormone suppressions, they still
Mhm.
have a clear advantage over cisgendered women. 3 years after, and Leah Thomas started her transition in 2019.
Oh wow,
Okay,
those are facts.
so that means that like even like the muscle improvement, the cardiovascular improvement, like your blood vessels get bigger.
Mhm.
Those don't just disappear because suddenly you have less testosterone. You have harder time maintaining it and healing and all that stuff, but it
Right.
doesn't disappear, right? Like in some of the other sports, like fighting, where weight and like bone mass matter. Like your bone mass doesn't disappear. Like the second housemate I lived with, Jenny, she was 6'4", right, and had massive hands, and
Mhm.
like even after all the hormones, they still had the massive hands. Like that doesn't just magically disappear,
Right, right.
right? And this is the problem with this discussion is like we talk about an individual as if Leah had not won anything, still shouldn't have competed. Now, the problem is there's only like a handful of cases here and there. That's the problem, right?
Correct.
So what handful of cases that we know of? Because there's a
Well,
lot of
yeah, I
sports
mean
in there. Because
they're
I'm
not a
looking
big
up
secret.
transgender athletes, and I'm seeing a lot of people in rugby,
Yeah,
in soccer, and like
yeah.
there's a lot of people that are doing this. It's just
Yeah.
now that because they're getting notoriety or getting noticed, this is now becoming an issue.
Yeah, and
Right?
then this is to get too much into the weeds, but one of the things that sports right now is doing that I have a big problem with is
Mhm.
we're now using just testosterone levels, devoid of any context, as a sole arbiter of what's fair, and
Mhm.
that's a problem. And then
There's more to it then. Yeah,
there's more to it than that. So
So let me
very
ask you
true.
a question. Let me ask you a question because what a lot of people um, don't want to hear is some females when they know that they're going up against a transgender athlete, it actually may affect them mentally as well. They
I was
may
going to touch on
they
that. Yeah.
they may
I can't speak to that. I train with women all the time in track, and I can tell you some of the best still come after you, whether you're a guy or not.
correct. Some do. Some
So
do.
Mhm.
I mean, you can't legislate everything, so I don't know. I can't speak to that personally. But I will say, like, so Gabriella Stafford, she was actually part of the club I was in. So I saw her when she was a high school student. I
Mhm.
helped train with her a little bit for a while.
Mhm.
Um, she's the type who's fearless, right? And you can see that by her results if you want to look her up. She was fourth in the
Mhm.
recent World Indoor Championships in the 5K. Uh, she's unique though, right? Um, are there women who get intimidated? Maybe I don't know. It's that's a question for like the individual. I will say, like speaking of what you were talking about earlier, how you can't speak to this because you're not something. I think the problem with that is it removes nuance from the conversation. Like if a white person started lecturing me about Black history, right? I would probably I'd be like, okay, let me see what this person's saying, right?
Mhm.
Correct.
Mhm.
Correct.
But it doesn't automatically mean they don't know what they're talking about,
Correct. Yeah, that's true.
right?
Yeah. Well, see, unfortunately, when we even brought up the topic, people automatically thought that they knew exactly what we were going to say.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And
like,
that's what hurt me too, because again, they attacked first before they listened, right?
Yeah.
correct.
Because I was trying to bring up a lot of things on this level. For instance, we've I think myself and Jules were going to talk about another episode about mental health. So I thought
Correct.
about that. And I'm like, does anybody realize the effect of the mental health on both parties? You have the world now looking at Leah Thomas as some type of, bad guy or bad woman, I should say, my apologies, about this matter. And they're just trying to compete. I get it. They are transitioning, or they have transitioned, and they're just trying to do something they love. We get that. And I respect that. However, on the flip side, there is about, I don't know how many people are in the NCAA women's division for swimming, but there's a lot of people who are now thinking that their dreams are crushed because they won't ever get to that level that she's at because of the unfair advantage that she now holds when it comes to competing.
I don't know
So
if I
now-
agree with that, though, to be honest.
What's that?
I don't know if I agree with that last
Think about it. Like I said, if you saw the image that I saw about the woman who came third,
I will
she
say,
was-
I think there are people, and in particular the women on the podium, especially the women who got fourth.
Mhm.
Like if you look at the amount of athletes who win gold in the NCAAs and the ones who repeat, it's like rare is repeating. Like you're a special athlete if you can win twice.
right.
So
Right.
winning once is a big deal, right?
Mhm.
Like it's NCAAs are pretty good when it comes to that. So there are at least a handful of women who would have lost out on rankings or podium finishes or wins or golds. I think most of them, though, I would be like, if you're finishing 20th, does it really
Yeah.
matter?
For sure. I
Correct,
get you.
correct,
But I mean,
correct.
there's people, both men and women, who strive of being the best, and they're trying to be the best. And when that opportunity is now taken from them, not because they're not good enough, is because somebody has a better advantage, that can do damage to someone's mental state. They put everything into this training, 6 to 10 hours a day or whatever, lifting and eating and living this whole sport, only to be now second place because someone chose to be put into a competition that they really weren't supposed to be put into. That's what I'm saying in terms of mental state. There's a lot. Again, don't be surprised when a lot of people will be reading about certain women either dropping out of certain competitions altogether or even hurting themselves because they know they can't do it. Women are very emotional. There's men who just go nuts when they can't get to it, and they start doing erratic things. So I think when they don't get or they know that something is taken from them, just watch their mental state. It will deteriorate because a lot of these people put everything into this thing, and to know that they can't get to that finish line and be first or even have the chance to be first, that can destroy a person. I think that's a mental thing.
So the other thing that some of the young ladies came out about is that Leah still has her male parts and was
Okay.
walking around the locker room all out, and that they felt uncomfortable.
Okay.
And unfortunately, people were like, well, maybe you have to get used to it. Like, why should they have to get used to that?
No, you're right. Now, has anybody asked the question to Ms. Thomas about the full transition? Are they going through the whole thing, or is there a stopping point where they say, you know what, that's it? Or do you have to fully transition?
No, I think for competition's sake, it's the hormones are the key. Like the external
Really?
genitalia doesn't really change anything one way or the other.
Ain't that
That's
shocking?
just no. I mean, because that's just to be completely blunt. It's an aesthetic or a choice and those kind of things. But in terms of competition, the only thing that they kind of look at right now, as far as I understand it, is just hormones and hormone levels. For good and for bad. So, like it, yeah. I will say this though, like this is some point, like when Lenore was talking to me about the whole thing. One of the things that stuck out to me is like you know, you alluded to this Tunde a bit, but it was like, you know, people don't just kind of, most of the time, the mentality, I'm sure, of Leah Thomas isn't like, okay, like, how do I win a competition and like have this evil plan? It was just, they were transgender, like, there was this whole issue with the brain sex thing. They didn't feel right, so they wanted to transition, right? Like, to give you perspective, like, by the way, this Lenore, who was Rob when moved in, was probably the manliest man I'd ever known, to give you perspective, right? He was a lumberjack, a fisherman, a day trader, like the guy professions, right? And then transitioned because, like, you know, all that stuff. So there is a, like, you know, we were talking about it, and it was at the time when they were going to cut funding here in Ontario for a lot of the surgeries, right?
Okay.
And as we were talking, now, to give you another more perspective, I'm Christian, so like I originally come at it that way. And so we were talking, and one of the things he said, like, people don't just transition just for the hell of it, right? This is like a serious thing to do, and it's usually causes fairly permanent effects, right?
Of course.
So this is why it's not common. Like, this is why, like you were pointing out earlier, like, why is there a bill for this? Like, it's not that frequent, right? Like, the amount of women, the amount of dudes who will transition to women just to compete, like, is few and far in between. It, you know, like, even if it happens, maybe occasionally, most guys wouldn't bother with that. No, like, there's just not enough, right? You're not, especially not for what, like NCAA's, like, and you do what? Get a scholarship? Like, no, right? So this is, I say this to say, like, a lot of this is like, you know, how did the individual meet this societal rules, right? And I don't, it is like unfair, you might say, that they can't compete, right? Like, I'd say it's even more unfair if you were, say, intersex, right? Because they can't even do anything about that, right? Like, Caster Semenya, I don't know if you know who she is, right? She's an intersex person who had high levels of testosterone and was dominating the 800 in the track, and they told her that she had to.
Oh yes, I do remember that. Yes.
From South African runner.
Yes.
See, for her, it's even more unfair because there's even less data, like, with than that, right? But so part of the problem is that it's not from the individual perspective. It's, you know, it's something that is serious that they do for their own reasons, and it's so significant. It's not just like putting on a dress and competing against women, right? It's changing your body permanently. Right. So it's a serious thing to do, and no one does it flippantly. Is the gist of what I understood. Right. So, you know, and I don't think it's, to be frank, I don't think this is going to be the world's biggest problem. I don't think there's going to be a massive transgendered, like, trans women who come out and start dominating the competition, primarily because, like, to be blunt, to be good as a female, like, to be, Leah Thomas was already a competitive swimmer. Right. She wasn't just a random man who just happened to transition and then started swimming. Right. And I say this to say, like, I trained pretty hard, and there was, like, levels. There's levels that women reach that I never reached. Right. Like, the world's fastest woman runs 10.4 or something like that. Right. 99.9% of men will never get that fast, no matter how hard they train. Right. So then what does that mean then? Like, when you have these guys that transition, is like the vast majority of those who transition aren't going to be elite athletes to begin with, who then transition, who then are fast enough that helps them in order to compete at the highest levels. Like, Leah Thomas is the exception, and in terms of success, because there has been other athletes in NCAAs who have competed. She's not the first.
Correct.
But she's, I think, the first to have won, if I understand correctly.
So
on that level, because I guess the reason why the bill was passed here because there was a transgender high schooler that broke all types of records when it came to track.
Yes, I did see that as well.
Really?
Yeah.
Who?
To tell you,
Okay.
Young African American female that was transitioning from male to female. I did see the story a while back. Probably about 2 years ago, maybe.
The sprints?
Correct. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sprints?
Yes,
Yes,
it was the 100-meter sprint.
Right.
Oh,
So that's probably what sparked it here in Florida.
Mm.
Now here's the thing. Now, Salam, you said that it might not spark something. I beg to differ, because now it's getting traction, and that people are seeing that it's something that is now all of a sudden mainstream. Look for a lot of other transitioning men to female jump into the sports world.
All right.
And
So,
get into these.
all right. The reason why I would disagree with that is it's not cheap to do, one. And
but I'm talking about people who've already been transitioning, not just all of a sudden they want to transition. No, I'm saying people who have already been transitioning and have stopped themselves from competing because of the backlash. Now that they have somebody that actually is now in the spotlight and they have actually won, and no one's really, I wouldn't say batting an eye, but no one's really going against them for winning, other than, the naysayers of, oh, this is not fair. Some people will now come out and say, hey, you know what? I would like to compete. I've been doing this for so long, right? That's what I'm trying to say.
But I honestly think it takes a certain type of mind state for you to even go out there to compete. So for Leah to want to come out and still compete, that's tough. It's still tough. But the question has always been, is there an advantage? I honestly don't think that there's going to be, because if you talk to some people, they're going to say, why don't you make your own category? Because there's not going to be enough athletes to compete.
No, yeah, exactly. And in fact, I think this is part of the problem when you have this discussion. Like, I really want to emphasize how difficult it is to be successful in sport. Like, it is, I don't like, it's fascinating because there was a recent paper that came out and about tiers of athletes, right? And we're comparing the elites to the super elites, to the fit people, to the lay people, to the people out of shape, and trying to have an objective marker for what it means to be competitive, right?
Right.
So like if you're faster than most people, you're in this category. But if you compete at the world level, you're in like this other category. But if you dominate in like someone like Usain Bolt in his prime, he's in a different category to all his fellow competitors who are also competing, who are a different category to those who can't quite qualify or who occasionally qualify for those who are then compared to people like I used to be. So there's different levels to these fitness. And I say this all to say is like, it is really, really, really difficult. And it's actually, to me, no matter how much I trained, I've seen now I've trained long enough that I've seen very fast people come and go. And the amount of levels there are, the difficulty it takes to get there. In order for someone to be competitive, even as a woman, it takes, like, if you're a guy and try to compete against the best of the women, it takes a lot of work, right? Like, in my best days, if things had gone right, I would have been like world class as a woman 5K runner, right? But that's nowhere near enough to even qualify for the men, right? And I trained something like 9 to 12 hours a week, like like as an amateur. I ran in university, I competed a bunch.
Right.
And even then, like, if I then had transitioned and started taking hormones, like, then okay, I would have been competitive. But like, most people would never be as fast as me as I was. Period. right? So, like, I say this to say, like, if the amount of people that could do what Leah Thomas did is few, very, very few, right? Like, everyone can transition, but very few can be good, then transition and be able to compete. Like, it's so difficult, right? So this is why I say I don't think it's going to flood, not because it can't happen, but because it takes particular people, right?
Okay. So you have to be
I
that
just
elite.
think that it's fear. People are afraid that they may that may happen. I just I just don't I just don't see the floodgates opening to have their own categories. Um, but my main point was at my main point at the very beginning is that instead of bringing politics into it, let the organizations themselves govern how it happens.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
there's
Okay.
there's a reason why there is an IOC. There's a reason why there's all these other organizations. So it doesn't make sense that politicians should overrule all these organizations. Like, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
I hear you.
But
I hear you.
like I said, I just don't see a floodgate. Like I said, it's not like it's something that's super cheap to do, and I don't think it is something that everyone that wants to transition can do.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, let me pause here, and I'll welcome a good friend of mine, my former football captain of the Toronto Mad Dogs, way back in my playing days. My good friend Didi. Didi, how you doing today, my friend?
Good. Thanks for having me on here.
Excellent.
How you guys doing, gentlemen?
Doing
Awesome.
great. I liked your input. It was very comedic as well as informative in terms of you wanting to talk your talk on here. We've been talking about the Leah Thompson situation and the transgender athletes in society. Now I know you're coming in late, but I wanted to touch base on say this is more of an elite status. Say this Leah Thomas now is going to compete for the Olympics, right? And now all of a sudden they're taking a spot from someone again who was usually in that realm of making the team. Now you're bumping someone down a notch because again they get, I wouldn't say head of the class, but they get a nice bump in rankings. What do you say to that? I mean, I would think that it's a bit unfair for someone to all of a sudden come from, I won't say nothing, but unranked to now being the number one ranked in NCAA, and also they have the invite to go swim for the Olympic team. Don't you think that's an issue? Anybody can answer that.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Leah says, you know what, with all this mess, I don't even want to compete anymore. And then there's no conversation.
Okay, well then, and that's again, I'll go on the other side of the fence now. That now affects that person's mental health. They're just trying to compete. They are transgender, wanting to compete in the sport that they love to do. And now you're telling me because of the media, they're now having to take a back seat and not want to fulfill their dreams. Is that unfair?
It was your choice in the beginning, and it's going to be your choice.
I think we need to get away from the idea of fair. Like, sports.
What else would you?
But I mean, what I mean is like you want level playing fields, but not necessarily fair, right?
Okay,
like I'll give basketball. Like, if you're taller, it's easier, right? Fair or not, that's what it is, right? But like, everyone plays under the same rules, or you don't take any artificial drugs, or you don't have an unfair advantage, right? Like, something you can't do anything about other than your physical body. I think there's a chance that Leah might be able to compete as a female, and I disagree with that. Right now, I think the world body just takes testosterone levels, and that's it. Doesn't look at body composition.
So you do think that it's a possibility she can compete for?
She competed in NCAA. I don't see why. Like, um, like what they're currently using to judge, let's say, intersex athletes
Hmm.
is testosterone levels,
Right.
And not even intersex. Some of them may just have high testosterone levels, right? And they go, well, that's an unfair advantage. I'm like, but it becomes problematic because then you're just like, if you have a freak, but who's just a woman who just happens to have high testosterone, so she's better, right? She's also has to reduce her testosterone. So that stuff may happen. So I definitely think there's a very real possibility she may be able to compete for the U.S.
Okay,
I don't know if it will happen because she still has to like get there, but
Yeah, she has to do the work.
She's miles away from actually competing in the Olympics.
Yeah.
So the young female is Kelan Godzi, is a 16-year-old All-American in track and field, a two-time national champion, and holds Division II national record in a hammer throw. Not to mention, he is the first openly transgender contender for the U.S. Olympic team.
Okay. So again, there are people that are breaking barriers. And again, we all like breaking barriers, but we're not used to this barrier being broken. And I think that's why everybody's up in arms about it. I mean, there's people. I mean, it took a long time for people to accept, gay people, let alone,
It took a long time for anyone to accept us in their sport. In every single sport.
Gentlemen,
100%. Yes,
gentlemen, let me put some fire into this conversation.
Here we go. Oh gosh, let me sit back right now.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Go on, old timer. Hit me.
I don't know. I have a problem calling a man a she. Right?
Okay.
That's how I'm going to start this conversation. I have a penis. Right? If every person that I'm looking at on this call has a penis, I can't call you a she. It's as simple as that. Has nothing to do with one's sexual preference, right? My belief is that anybody in this world is allowed to live their own life as they want to live their own life, right?
Okay.
If I'm sitting on this call right now and I'm looking at 3 black men, is there anybody else on this call? Or is it just 4 of us?
That's right now. Just us right here.
Okay. I'm looking at 3 black men on my screen. Mm-hmm. If I came on this call and I told you, gentlemen, I'm a white man, or I'm an Asian man, or I'm a Middle Eastern man, would you refer to me as so?
So, what is your given name?
What's my given name?
Yeah.
My given name was Didi.
That is his given name.
Okay, so what if you wanted to be called something else?
A different name?
Yeah.
Are we comparing a name and how we were born? The genetics of how we're born, are we comparing that to a name?
Well, you're saying that I have a problem calling a man she.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Because genetically, scientifically, right? It's already been determined before any of us on this call were born that a man is born with a penis and a woman is born with a vagina. It's not common sense. It's not a discussion. This is what it is.
But that's
right. I'm born. I'm
telling you, what you just said is factually wrong.
It's factually wrong. Okay, please educate me.
So, you define man as someone with a penis. Am I correct?
Not necessarily. There's more to it than that. I'm just giving you the surface. It has to do with it has to do with organ. It has to do with organs also. Am I wrong too?
Right. So there's as I put it, there's like 4 different things. There's your chromosome. There's your gonads or your like internal sex organs. There's your external, and then there's your brain.
Okay.
right? The problem is with transgendered is that there are brain changes in them, and you can measure this. This isn't like what it means and what you want to call them could be up to you. But like, do these things happen? Is absolutely. There is no debate. This is why you have the issue with intersex and competition and men and women. It's just because it's not like what I'll say. This is what I'll say that sometimes can be seen as controversial. Is I think there's biological intent. That is, the biology is trying to make a man or a woman. That's
what do you mean? What do you mean by trying?
Trying, like it's like the human body is trying to make two arms, trying to make two legs. But the reality is, some people are born with one arm or one leg, right? So things don't always.
And when you're born, when you're born with one arm, are you not considered? Is that not considered a birth defect?
Sure, but this is the point, though, right? So, for instance, if you have the sex determining part of your chromosome is called the SRY gene. It's found on your Y protein in men, right? If you don't have that as a woman, then different things happen. But you can be XX, that is have no Y gene, but you have sometimes what's called an XY male, which is like you have XX, but you just happen to have just that part that makes you a man, right?
Okay.
And then you develop testes, and then you become, now you have no viable sperm, but you couldn't tell them apart from us, right? So genetically, they're female, maybe depending on how you define female, but biologically they come out phenotypically and like secondary sex characteristics as a man, right? They'd be only competing against men. They wouldn't be able to compete against women, right? And then there are
what are we talking about? What are we talking about competing right now? We're going back to the basics. We're trying to go back to the basics of what a man and a woman is.
Yes, but the problem is if you have someone who has all the they have testes, they have testosterone levels, they have XY gene, and they have like the SRY gene, but they have no receptors for testosterone. They look like female, they compete like female, and they've been competing as women. Right?
My friend, you keep talking about
identify as women.
You keep talking about competition, right?
Okay,
listen to what I'm saying. Could you pretend I'm a 5-year-old child?
Okay. So there are some.
Explain to me what the difference between a man and a woman is.
There is a biological intent as a 5-year-old. Okay. So biology tries to make men with sperm and women with eggs that can give birth to babies.
What does try mean? I don't understand the word
try. As in, like, you're going to build a house. You're going to try to build a house. Most of the time, it's successful. 95%. I don't know what the percentage is. Most of the time, like with us four, for instance, it was successful. Most of the time, when it goes bad, it doesn't even make it to term. The baby doesn't even born. This is where you get miscarriages and so forth. Right? Most of the time, when it goes well, it goes well. Very few times, like 2 to 5% of the time, it goes bad. That happens. And
what goes bad?
Like biology, like the brain gets too much male hormones, and so the person feels male in the brain, even though the rest of the body isn't. Or they have all the hormones and the genes and the testes of a man, but because they can't respond to testosterone, their body just doesn't respond to it. They become a woman, and they think like women.
So what do you mean by respond?
Mean that like I'm trying to keep it simple, but they don't have the receptors for testosterone. So you can give them all the testosterone you want, they will never turn into a guy. Their voice will never deepen.
So they have physical attributes of a man, right?
No, they have physical attributes they have some physical attributes of a man, like testes inside, and they have so instead of ovaries, they have testes inside. They don't have a uterus, but they do have a vagina, and their chromosomes are male. right?
Isn't that
So
considered an hermaphrodite?
that was the old term. Now they call them intersex. Yes, right.
Okay,
So
but that's totally different
it
from
isn't. No, but it isn't.
why
That's
we
the
came
point.
onto this call, right? That's
No, but
totally
it
different.
isn't.
That's not
But it isn't totally different. That's the point.
why. Why is it not
Because
the what?
because and this is the thing that I think people don't get is like transgendered folks, it's the same issues as intersex, but in the brain. That's the problem, right? The brain is a physical thing. That people think it's just you can just change it and it's just.
So then
like,
you're saying it's a mental defect then.
I would not use the word defect, but it is
Why not?
There
'cause
goes my audience.
It's a loaded word. No, because it's a loaded word, and
It is.
No, it's not a loaded word. If I'm born with one arm, right? I have a physical defect. Correct?
again,
If I'm born with one leg, I have a physical defect.
okay, define
I-
defect.
I don't think it's a defect. I just think it's a challenge.
Define defect then.
No, listen,
definitely. If you're not
Define
born with
defect.
two arms, two legs,
listen.
No,
a nose,
seriously, define defect for me. How
He just did. He just did.
I'm going by just regular
Regular
I would say
biology.
common,
If I'm
common
born
knowledge,
with three eyes,
Right?
with 3 eyes, am I normal?
Right. Society has based normal on a certain way and look that you are.
Absolutely.
So
Let's
that's
not
what
dance
he's
around
that's
it.
what he's trying to get to.
I'm not on here to be sensitive. Life is not sensitive.
No, I'm being
right?
precise. It's not about sensitivity.
I'm not here to offend anybody at the same time. That's not the purpose. But I
Right.
don't like the bullshit, and I don't like to dance around. And reality is reality, right? If I'm born with one arm, it's a physical defect. Simple as that. I don't even know why we have to even discuss that.
Yeah,
Because
but
if we have to get into that, that means people are not being real to themselves, right? There's something wrong if I'm born with one arm, there's something wrong with me. It doesn't necessarily mean that you born with two arms are better than me. It just means I have a physical defect.
Okay, let me ask you a question then.
Sure.
Because you're getting into like moral territory, and the reason I say this is like I understand what you're saying,
Mhm.
and this is why I said, and this is why I was very precise, which is like things didn't go as intended, and the reason I say that is because it gets across what you're trying to say, which is things did not happen as designed,
As planned. Right.
but there is no loaded word with it. And the reason I ask you this, and this is the question, is would you say the same thing of those who are gay?
You're setting me up.
No, I'm not though, because some people will use the same argument. And my point is, don't get into.
So if you want me to answer that, I'm going to answer that for you. I'm going to answer that for you.
But
I'm going to answer it for you. I'm going to answer it for you. So my interpretation of gay is probably different from your interpretation of gay. Okay. There's many speculations, right? People are going to come out with their science. People are going to come out with their morality. People are going to come out with their opinion, right? Listen to mine. My version of homosexuality can be split into two. Okay. Half of it has to do with what I call greed, right? The greed part I'm expressing to you of homosexuality is that there are people who are not, I consider homosexual, and I'll get to that later so you understand what I mean by that. They're not homosexual because the greed aspect of life is what takes over in sexuality. I'm referring to I think homosexuality is more of a feeling than an act, right? Man is a very sexual being, right? And I think a lot of men get to that point, or in times right now where society is very free and loose with a lot of things that, were not happening before. I feel a lot of people express their sexuality in different ways, right? Being gay could mean different things. I don't think it means one thing anymore. I think somebody, what you're referring to as being gay or homosexual, is an act of a feeling, right? When you have an act of passion, you look at the same sex as yourself, right? And you lust after that. Emotionally, not physically, emotionally, that's when I consider yourself to be a homosexual. If your acts are just of physical nature, I don't consider you to be homosexual, because there are a lot of men out there that would just, that term, they'll fuck anything, right? I think that is where a lot of people are confusing homosexuality, because to me, homosexuality is of the brain. It's of emotion. The same way I have an emotion towards a woman is the same way a homosexual will have that. They have the same feelings towards a man, right? So that's why I said to you, it's a double-edged sword, right? It's not, I can't give you a straight answer on that, because I think there's people who are out there who are claiming homosexuality and they're not really homosexual. So
all right, my question is this.
Fire.
My question is this. What is wrong with respecting the way that someone feels?
Sorry, I don't know why I'm having a problem hearing. Maybe I spoke too much.
No, my question
Can you hear us,
is
Didi?
my question.
Like it's hold on, because I can't hear speaker wise anymore. Hold your question where it's going.
Let me know if you can hear us.
What's going on here? Speak to me.
We're here. We're here.
Check.
Can you
Yeah,
hear
I
us?
can't. Hold on.
You can't hear us right now.
What's going on here?
Chatting it, or tell them to log out and then log back.
Say
in.
something.
Yo,
Can
Can
you
you
hear
hear
us?
us?
you can hear us still? I'll let them
Hello?
know.
Hello.
I'll let them know.
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, I
I'm
can't
gonna.
hear you.
I'll send him a message real quick,
One
just so he
second.
knows. Just so he knows.
Settings.
To touch base on what he was saying.
Just to finish the point,
Yeah.
You'll maybe hear this later. It's just like
Yeah.
what I was trying to get at was that, intersex, when we talk about it, like the old school term was hermaphrodite.
Right.
It was a body thing, right? The problem with the thing with transgender is that it's a brain thing, right? That's the issue, right?
It's literally from what I understand from the people that I know. It's I have male features, but I feel like a female.
Okay, I can hear you guys.
All right.
Okay.
So all right.
Yeah.
So from what I understand from transgender is it's if it's a man and he feels like he's a female inside. And my thing is, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem respecting anyone's sexuality or how they feel or how they want to be
But how you
responded.
feel has nothing to do with sexuality, though.
Okay, but
You just said that it's about feelings.
Homosexuality and transgenderism is two different things.
So getting back to
I'm lost.
So let me rewind a little bit. So Didi, you didn't hear this, but like 20 years ago when I was roommates with this person, he was Rob, and then came out to me like 20 years ago as Lenore. And I'm a Christian. I'm a serious Christian. I go to church every Sunday. I still go to church every Sunday. And when I was told this, I didn't know what to make of it because like it's not a topic the Bible covers. Okay. So I was like, okay, I have no idea what to make of this information. Now, I'm also a human biology major. That was my degree. That's what I was doing. That's what I graduated with. So I know a little more than the average person. And the thing I figured out is this, like, to your point is like, and this is something that even in the sciences and when we talk about transgendered is that, you know, one way to think of transgendered people is that it's intersects in the brain, right? Like it's a change in the brain. But the thing that in the science right now it doesn't talk too much about, or at least doesn't have any data is what does that change mean? And what is that, like, what does that even mean? Like, what does it mean to be, like, I've thought about this because of this conversation, like of the conversation I had 20 years ago, but what does it mean to think you're a guy? Like, I'm a guy, so I'm just a guy. I don't really think I'm a guy, that's what I am, right? But they have this disconnect that seems to be measurable via MRI. You can see it physically, right? So I started thinking about it, and in relation to your question is like, you know, would you call someone who says they're white or whatever? I was like, depends on what it is they're asking, right? That'd be the answer to your question, Dee, which is like, if someone says, call me he instead of she, I remember thinking, is this that hill I want to die on? I'm like, not really. I don't really care. Like, I don't care. Like,
you should care.
But some
care.
people do care about that.
No, but here's the thing. This doesn't mean that I have to decide that I think it's okay. It just means like if someone asks me to call him Joe, but their real name is Frank, like I'm like, okay, whatever.
It's not the same thing. That is not the same thing.
Tell me why it's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. Come on.
Why is
we're all intelligent here. We're all intelligent here. I opened up by saying to you, if I told you that I identify as a white man, okay? You calling me a white man, does that change anything in life in regards to me asking you to call me a white man? Do I really fit into that? Does it really mean now I got white privilege because I identify as a white man? Like, is that really, are you really comparing that to be the same thing as me changing my name and you just calling me Tunde? Is that the same thing?
Depends on what it is you're asking. If you're asking to call you by a literal different name, then I don't care. If it's saying that you don't have the advantage, like this is what we're talking about. Do transgendered athletes have advantages like trans women, male to female trans folks? Do they have advantages over women? Absolutely they do. And how they feel is irrelevant, right?
Right.
But if
absolutely.
we're talking how they feel is irrelevant. But if
finally,
we're talking
I agree with something you just said.
Right, but if what we're talking about is like call me he instead of she, I'm like, okay, whatever. Like I don't care.
But that's
it's not about caring though.
But that's you the individual though, right?
Oh, it is.
Right.
It is. But everybody, it's also. But this is the thing I get. Like again, I'm a Christian, so like I have certain ideas about this.
Understandable,
but
yeah.
The thing I came to the conclusion of is like, why is that the hill? Like, why is pronouns the hill?
Can I tell you the problem with that? You know what the problem is? Is that we live in a society where we feed into others' dreams, right? Or delusions, not dreams, right? And if I come to you and I say to you, forget calling me a name. If I come to you and I say to you, I feel like a woman, and you look at me and you say, excuse me? I'm 300 pounds. I bench 500 pounds. I got a beard. I got a penis. I procreated. I have kids. And I'm looking at you and I'm saying to you, I feel like a woman. So therefore, you should now call me a woman. Call me a woman. Hold on. Let me finish what I'm saying. Hold on. No, I don't respect you. I don't respect you for asking you to call me what's obvious, what's not the obvious. I don't respect you for trying to tell you that you don't really know what you're looking at. This is what you're looking at. That terminology, if it quacks like a duck, if it looks like a duck, come on.
But
You're
here's
not gonna
the thing. But here's the thing.
you're not gonna call it a chicken. You know it's a duck.
I don't care. If
So
you
if you don't
say,
care,
if
if you don't
say,
care,
no,
then a
hold
man
on,
is a man and a woman's a woman. Why are we confusing things?
Hold on.
Why
This
are we
is my
confusing
show.
things?
This is my show. So
Hey,
Okay, go ahead.
whoa.
Hold
Hold
on.
on. We gonna get her straight right here.
It doesn't bother me. So I don't care. If you say call me a white man, okay. It's not an argument. If you say this is what I feel like, that's what you feel like.
But
It's not going to bother me at all.
Okay, but what he's saying is that you cannot say that you're a white man and assume that you're going to get the same respect or same privilege as a white man is going to get if you want to identify yourself as a white man. I'm breaking down what he's saying. I understand what you're saying, Jules. You as the individual will definitely understand what he's saying as it mute because it doesn't bother you. But again, other people are not the same, right? So people, I would walk down.
He's asking me.
No, yes,
He's
and I
not
said
asking
you as
society.
right,
He's asking
right.
me.
Right. And you said it doesn't bother you. You can call him Jim if you want to. Right. But on the eye, he's standing beside at the grocery store who's never seen a 300-pound black man is going to look at him and say, hey, what's your name? Oh, my name's Jim. Oh, where are you from? Just stop right there. You know, I'm a 300-pound white man.
I'm Irish.
Respect me. That's going to confuse a person who's never heard that or seen that. You could accept that, but that person might not.
Now, hold on. Let me add to what you're saying. Now, that's the easy part. This is the easy part of the conversation, right? Now, I'm now telling you, right? I want you to physically adapt to my delusion by allowing me to physically do something to where if I wasn't a black man, I would be allowed to do it because I'm a white man.
So, but this is, I think, where I draw the line. Like, this is why I was saying, why is pronouns the thing, right? This is why I said, like, I don't think trans women should compete against women, period, right?
Okay, you don't. Okay, great.
If they want to be called she, I don't care. Like, I'll call you.
Who on this call feels the opposite, though?
Hold on, Didi.
No one.
So, this is the thing, right? Like, if you say, you came up to me, you're a big dude, you have a beard, and go, I'm a white dude. I'm like, my first thought is like, no, you're not. But then I'd be like, call me, I don't know, Irish guy, right? I'd be like, fine, I'll call you that. But then if you tell me that, like, now you have to treat me as if I'm exactly that, that's a different thing, right?
But that's the same thing, though.
No, it's not the same thing, because one is a name and the other one is actually like a thing that you do or respect or something. Like, you know, you've heard, like, don't hit a woman. But really what it should be is don't hit people, right? Because I've known really small dudes who could get wrecked by really big girls, right? But, like, if you don't go, well, don't hit her, even though she's, like, messing you up, like, that's nonsense, right? You have to judge it based on the situation. And the issue I have with the pronouns is, like, what I meant is literally, like, if you're asking me, like because you're transgendered or you think you're a woman, therefore I should treat you exactly like every other woman, that's when I have a problem. But if you're asking me, call me by a different name, I'm like, okay. I'm like, I don't, like, it literally, like, it will only affect the name I use, and that is, if that's the only
the name thing is the easy part of this conversation, though. I think we all agree on that.
Yeah. But a lot of people get stuck on that, right?
But now, where my problem is if you notice, the first thing I jumped on is when you're calling a man a she, right? Now, that is the problem that I have, right? Because I know it's a man, right? You know it's a man, but you're calling her a she. He is not here on this call. If you're trying to say you're trying to respect somebody, I can understand it. I'll swallow my spit and watch you face to face with the he and call him a she. But that person is not here. You're still referring to a man as a she Who are you saving face for by doing that? Or are you confused yourself between a man and a woman?
So
But
here's part of the problem. You've come in toward the back end of the show and you've not seen
sure,
any
sure.
of it. So the whole topic was the transgender in sports.
Okay.
And we pretty much all agreed on the same thing. And
Right.
then the topic that you're bringing up is a totally different topic that, to me, I don't even know where it came from.
No, you know where it came from?
We all have tangents.
It came from, hold on. It came from the fact that you're right. I don't know what happened prior to me getting on this, but I came on and I know what the topic is about, and it's about a man who is competing in women's sports, right? And 4 men are sitting on this call referring to a man as a she. That's where I have a problem.
Well, it's a man.
But the problem with
transitioning to a woman.
You're kind of missing the forest for the trees. Like we were talking about, having a little more background. None of us thought that Leah Thompson should compete against women because there's scientific evidence, there's logical evidence, there's all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. All of us agree with that. Like, correct. None of us thought, regardless of what you call her, she should not compete against women because he should not compete because
against women.
Because like there's clear advantages that don't magically disappear because you start taking hormones. They don't just disappear, right? Even the amount of work you can do.
But you agree that he's a man, but you're still calling her a she though.
Because the pronoun does not matter.
So if it doesn't matter, call him a him. Why are you calling her a she if it doesn't matter?
Because I respect what people want to be called. Period.
You know him?
Do you know him? But I wouldn't call you a she no matter what other people thought.
If you're standing in the mirror by yourself, right? Can you tell yourself whatever you want to tell yourself in the mirror and it's true?
Are you okay? So are you still debating whether or not transgendered is real or not?
No, I'm not debating that. I'm talking. Listen to me carefully. I can't even get into the transgender conversation if we don't have a platform to start with, right? And the platform is that a man is competing in a women's sport, and we are sitting on this call not agreeing with that, but yet still calling a man a she. That is human confusion.
It's a man transitioning to a woman.
Basically, Didi, we've come to the fact that we respect their choice of what they want to be called. We don't have to accept it, but we're respecting.
But you do accept it. But you do accept it. If you the minute you say, I will call you a man because you choose to be called a woman, even though I know you were born of a man, you still possess manly tools.
Mm-hmm.
You're stuck on the sex.
No, I'm not stuck on sex. That's the furthest.
Because no, because we've said Leah. So no one said he or she.
Oh, not physical. You're not talking about sex as in intercourse.
No.
You're talking about sex as in male or woman.
We're talking about gender. Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I'm stuck. At this point,
I can't move further than that. Because I can't call a man.
Let me ask you.
The whole purpose of this is that we do not agree with a man competing in a woman's sport, but yet you're willing to call that man a she.
Why is this so important?
Do you not understand the problem with that?
No, I don't. Explain it to me because I don't understand why you care so much about the pronoun.
No. You know why I care so much? You know why I care so much?
I don't mean because the competition.
I mean, hold on. You know why I care? Because the problem starts with people like us, right? Agreeing and supporting okay, then that's how a man is able to compete in a woman's sport. That's ludicrous. That should not be something of this world to happen. But the fact that we're discussing it is because people choose to say, oh, I accept what you are doing. It's okay with it. And I'm going to give in to what you're saying now. Although I know you're a man, I don't care, but I will call you a woman. That's where the problem starts.
Let me
And
ask you a
that's
question.
why
symbolic
he is
stance.
able.
Let me ask you a
That's why
question.
he is able to compete in women's sports. We do not draw the line.
So
We're
basically,
not drawing a line somewhere.
so you're saying we've created our own monster. That's what you're saying.
Yes, absolutely. We are to
So,
blame.
hold on.
So it's a symbolic stance.
Hold on. I
Yes,
just have a
you
question.
have to. When do you draw the line?
Where do I draw the line when it matters?
When does it matter?
When does it
When
matter?
does it matter? For
Yeah.
instance, when there's competition against women, when I don't know, like
But
they're
it's
parading
happening,
around, but
The line hasn't been drawn because it's happening. We're letting it happen.
No. You're saying their line hasn't been drawn. I'm saying why draw the line there? There's a difference.
Okay.
You're saying there's no line. I'm saying that's not a line where I'm willing to draw because I don't care.
So when
It
do you draw the
literally-
line then? A man is
like-
competing. A man is competing in women's sports. When do you draw the line?
Right,
Let
like
me ask
for
you-
After or
instance,
before?
Let me
before
ask you a
that.
question.
Yeah,
Let me ask
before
you a
that.
question. At what point does he have to be fully
Thank you.
female?
Thank you.
Fully
Thank you for what you
female
just did.
For you,
Thank you for what you just did.
For you to accept that it's a female.
At what point do I accept that he?
At what point?
Yeah.
What point, when William officially turns into Leah, would you consider female? Does
When
a person have to
when
have
when she
surgeries and
has
all this
ovaries.
type of stuff?
When
I'm
she
sorry?
has ovaries.
So never.
That's just never.
So never,
Not even
basically.
a thing.
Again,
Then that's
but
your answer.
but
Okay,
here's
so
the
then-
thing.
Then that's your answer.
But gentlemen, you have to understand. There's a lot of people that think the way that Didi thinks. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
that's
like,
true. But so
you have
a
to be.
question,
Don't be.
They
Don't be
just
shocked
don't
when you're
have
getting
the
challenged.
balls.
so
No,
a question
easy-
for you then,
easy
Didi.
now.
As I speak.
So a question
What
for
I'm
you,
saying
Didi.
is, like I said, this is why we brought it the conversation. We're not arguing about it. We're having a conversation about it.
Right.
We're gonna
So-
have people in Didi's mindset that think no matter what you say or how you do it,
Tunde,
a duck is a duck. You're not gonna call it a chicken.
brother, let me ask these both gentlemen a question, okay? Are you both straight men?
Yeah.
As if it matters.
No, it does matter. I'm asking you a question.
Why? Why does it matter to you?
Because because it leads to my next question.
But it should not matter to you what I do.
No, it really doesn't matter to me. But it's
Okay, so I
I'm
asked the
asking you a
question.
question because I'm asking a question to lead to something else. It's either a yes or a no. And it doesn't matter if it's a no or yes or a no. It doesn't make no difference to me.
Okay,
But
so
I have
then
to.
go ahead and skip to your next point then.
Okay, so I
said
got
yes.
one
I'll answer your
answer.
question.
I
Yes.
got one answer. So my next question is, if you are a straight man, right, and you love females and that's your attraction, okay, when Leah fully converts, would you be interested in her as a woman at that point?
No.
Why?
No.
Because I'm not interested in transgendered women.
But she's a woman now.
No.
You said she's fully
I'm not.
transferred.
There's plenty of women I'm not into.
You're making it so that I think, just because I say she, that I think that there is no differences whatsoever between a cis woman. I'm using the terminology that most people use: cis woman and trans woman. I never said that.
I don't know what a
I
cis
just-
woman. Sorry.
Okay, so basically, all it means is you were born a woman and you stay a woman. That's all a cis woman is, right? A trans woman is born a man, changed to a woman, physically, not just like I feel.
Not by my definition. There's no such thing as changing to a woman.
Sure, but that's the definition they use, and it's just easier to clarify.
Sure,
But
they can
women,
call themselves whatever they want to call themselves.
Sure, but I never said they will be exactly the same as women born women. I never said that. You are saying that. I never did. like I never said at no point when I said I don't care about the he, she, because it doesn't matter. Like in Hawaiian, I'm learning Hawaiian. Do you know there's no verb, there is no pronoun for he or she. It's just one pronoun that means both. You have to use context to figure out whether you're talking about a man or woman. Does that magically change things? Absolutely not.
That's a
Right?
language.
Like,
That doesn't matter.
yeah,
That's
but exactly. It doesn't
that's
matter.
that's invalid.
You're
In my
stuck on a
culture,
language.
in my culture, they call everybody a he.
Right.
In Africa, woman or man, they always say he. You have to
Right.
you have to
Like
defer. You have to.
I'm Eritrean. I'm from Eritrea, right? In
Okay.
my language, it's called Tigrinya.
Mhm.
There is a way to address someone that you
Yeah.
have to know the gender of the person you're talking to. You
Mhm.
have there's a way, like if I tell you all guys eat, it's bala, but if I'm talking to a woman, it's bali, and I have to know which one it is, right? So yeah, language changes, but the point is, like you're asking if I'm straight and I think they're like I'm gonna call him she, will I be attracted? And the problem with what you're saying is that a lot of people who completely disagree with you, right? A lot of transgendered people actually think exactly like the point you're making, which is another problem altogether, which is if I'm trans, then you have to like me in the same way. And I completely disagree with that, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm going to get caught up in pronouns, because it frankly doesn't matter. Like I lived with two people, and you know what changed when I called them he or she? Nothing, literally nothing.
That's
Right?
but you see that, but that's what I'm trying to say to you. That's the problem with society, right? We need to care a little bit more. Maybe these people, like you were trying to explain to me earlier, maybe it's a psychological problem, right? I'm no doctor, I'm no scientist. If you ask me my opinion, I'll say that's what it is, right?
Issue. Physiological
So-
problem, like a body
so-
problem.
So the bottom line is, right, is that if somebody is going through a psychotic problem, right, we don't give in to their mental instability, right? We do what we do as normal folks to try to correct them, right, to bring them back to normal society, right? We don't give in and say, oh yes, Joshua, the sky is red, you are so right. Like that's not what is the normal practice of a human, right?
No,
So
no.
that's why I started off this conversation with, I have a problem calling a man a woman. I know, right? I know what a woman is. I know what a man is. If you try to insult my intelligence, okay, by asking me to call a woman a man, we can't continue the conversation, because I have a you're trying.
You're
Sorry?
You're focused on your culture and your beliefs.
No, it has nothing to do with culture, and it has nothing to do with
No,
belief.
because you just said that. You said in my culture, this is what we do.
About what? I talked about he. Listen very carefully. I said in my culture, right? They call everybody he. It doesn't mean they don't know the difference between a woman and a man. It just comes out like that. Language, that's what they're used to, right? Has nothing to do with my beliefs whatsoever. You don't want to know my beliefs. I'm not going to express my beliefs, because my beliefs are my problem.
You've already said your beliefs. You've already said your beliefs.
Oh no, trust me, my beliefs go way beyond this conversation.
Oh boy, yeah.
Which is probably a different show, but it's.
I will never. You know what? I will never express my beliefs. You know why? Because they're my beliefs, and it's what I believe, and what I believe and how I live my life is my problem, right? And just so I believe that I should live the way I believe that every other man and woman should live the life according to how they feel they should believe. They should believe, right?
But what's wrong with someone wanting
Can I-
to do something else? You just
There's
said
nothing wrong with it. I didn't say there's nothing wrong with it. I didn't say there's anything wrong with it. Just don't insult my intelligence. That's the problem. There's a difference between doing something and convincing others of what you do. Those are two different things. Those are two different things. You can do as you please, right? But don't try to convince me or get me to accept what it is that you do.
So
That's where the
I will
problem
connect-
lies.
If I can address that. Now I'll say this: you bring up at least one of your points, which is very good, which is you are highlighting a problem that I've seen, which is because you're supposed to accept transgender folks equally.
I accept them as humans. I accept them as humans.
Yeah, I know. But like the current popular or the way things are going is, and you'll see this in these TERF discussions. I don't know if you know what a TERF is.
No.
It's trans exclusionary radical feminist or something like that. It's women who think trans women are not the same as women, right? And
they're correct.
There's a lot in the trans community who have issues with it.
Yeah.
Now, the reason I say this is like part of the issue is that there is a lack of subtlety that is in the like humans in society when we have these conversations have trouble with subtlety. Like we have trouble with the little bits that that it's not exactly like it's purely this or it's purely that. And I say this to say like one of the things. So the first person I ever knew who was trans who came out to me was very educated, was in the sciences, was a PhD, and was also very self-aware. And one of the interesting things that you guys may not have noticed, and it seems like very few people talk about, is if you notice, she would go to support group, and it was interesting because a lot of the ones who would always talk were always the male to female trans folks, and the male to female trans folks would hardly talk, which she pointed out was exactly the dynamic that happens when you have a bunch of men and women. Men usually dominate the conversation. I say this to say, if you notice in the popular media, who is the ones you see? It's almost always trans women, right? It's like Kylie Jenner or Leah Thomas or whatever. You never, ever, ever, ever see trans men, female to male trans folks talking. And part of the reason, and I've noticed this, I even saw a documentary where this one trans guy was trying to understand what it was like to be a man. And the interesting premise was like, he didn't understand, and I'm calling him by the pronoun he chooses, but he didn't understand what it meant to be a man because he didn't grow up as a man and wasn't a man, and so took up boxing to try and get into it. And the thing I found most interesting about that was that it was not, this is what it means to be a man, accept me fully equally in the exact same way because I'm no different. It was like, I don't know what it's like to be a man. I didn't grow up as a man. I grew up as a woman and I transitioned and so forth, right? And the problem is you see in society is like, whenever you hear these discussions, always usually white, trans men, people who grew up with privilege, who then take that privilege and try and assert it, and then in the end end up kind of dominating the conversation. Like there are people who say, because I'm a woman, not just a trans woman, like a woman in no different than a woman who was born a woman, then you have to accept me. And if you don't find me attractive, you're transphobic. That literally happens, right? There was a girl who came up to Jamaica, to Toronto. She was worried because she thought she had to like trans men or something like that. She was 18-year-old from Jamaica and didn't understand it. I'm in Toronto, I don't know if you know. And you had, like, my friend had to explain to her, like, no, you don't have to do that, right? Like there is that lack of subtlety that is missing in popular culture. But like the reason I don't think you should die on that hill, Didi, by the way, is because ironically is if you want more people to listen to you, to die on that hill is pointless. Like it's not good. Like because you don't call them he or she will not change their mind. And it doesn't mean that you have to then accept every other premise that someone tells you, right? Just like if you told me, I think I'm an Irish guy, by the way, there are Black Irish people, but I'm an Irish guy. Like, okay, you can call yourself whatever you want. That doesn't mean I'm suddenly going to like treat you exactly the same as if you were born in Ireland, right? Like you still can use your judgment. So that's why I don't die on that hill, because it's a pointless hill to die on. It literally, like, all it does is, even if, especially if you're right, is it makes people stop listening to you.
Oh, see, I was going to bring up this point now. So because he's in that type of mindset, is he wrong to be in that mindset?
No,
I don't know if
that's his
wrong
opinion.
is the right word. I mean, because
Well, I mean, I'm listening and everybody's saying, you know, what he's saying, and everybody's going at it like what he's saying ain't true. And you know what? Half of the things, well, no, not, I'll say 3/4 of the things he said is fact. Like, I was taught many years ago, you know, a man is a man, a woman is a woman. That's what you're told way back when. What he's saying is that society is now changing the playbook for us to accept what anybody wants to accept, and we're
yeah,
going to take it as normal.
and this is why I'm saying, like, the best thing you can do is understand where to draw the line, and know that, like, for instance, like, no matter what anyone tells me, trans women, male to female trans folks, are not identical to women. They didn't grow up as women. They didn't never had to deal with periods. They're smaller, like they're bigger. So they like, you know, like if you're sick, like the two that I knew were the biggest dudes I knew. Like, one was the manliest man I knew, and the other one was like 6'3", right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they didn't grow up as 5'2". Like, it's not the same. It is not the same. And there are people who push it, but we
could put a fifth person. Sorry to cut you off. We can put a fifth person on a call who will disagree 100% with what you just said.
Which part?
In regards to that they are not equal, right?
Sorry, what do you mean they're not equal?
That a trans, I don't even understand how this whole.
They're not the same. Equal is not a good. They're not the same. I'm not. That's irrelevant.
Your belief. That's your belief, and that's also, I share your belief. But that's what I'm trying to say to you, right? Why does things have to come down to what certain people believe and what certain people don't believe? We all have common sense, right? We all have common sense, right? But it's now like, okay, my outlook on homosexuality is different 20 years ago from it is today. How do you not know that what your belief in transgender is not going to change in society in another 20 years from now? The track that we go down as humans in society right now, this conversation that we're having right now will look like we're in 20 years from now, will look like we're bullying. They won't believe, how could you guys even have a conversation like this? We should be hung for even thinking like that. You know why? Because there's no line drawn. There's no line that's drawn. And we keep accepting and accepting and accepting and accepting. When does the line get drawn where we stop accepting and say, listen, I'm a parent. We love our children. If you are a father, you love your child. But at some point, if your child is doing certain things that you know, listen, this is unacceptable anymore, you have to put your foot down. Period. Whether it's out of love, it's out of common sense, it's out of whatever it is, humanity, at some point you have to put your foot down and say enough is enough. But this is the problem. When we start feeding in and say, oh, you're a woman, but that's okay. You want to be a man? Okay, I'll call you a man. That's bullshit, right? Because we just keep on feeding and allowing, and things keep on changing and changing. And like, come on, like, at what point? At what point?
You sound like old white people when black people want to change.
When what? Sorry?
When black people want to change. When they wanted
what
to be
What do you mean by when black people want to change? Sorry.
When they wanted to be considered equal.
Wow, I can't believe you just said that.
You sound exactly like that.
I can't believe you just said that.
You sound exactly like that.
No, hold on.
When are we going to stop letting them? When are we going to stop letting them do this?
Are
When are
we
we gonna put our foot down?
are we
They are
going to
less than
compare?
us.
Are we going to compare judging the color of a man's skin and looking at the color of a man's skin and degrading them, enslaving them, treating them like they're not human, looking at them worse than even a dog, an animal? Is that what we're going to compare? Hold on. Is that what we're going to compare to somebody choosing to say, I know what a man is and I know what the difference between a man and a woman? Is that what you're comparing?
You're
Say it. Say I'm homophobic. Say I'm transphobic. Say it. You're dying to say it.
Because you don't want to accept. Because you don't want to accept someone
what?
else.
Accept what? I don't have to accept nothing.
You're right. You're right. You are absolutely right.
I accept humanity.
And
I accept humanity. Whether somebody is.
I don't even understand why it matters to you what someone else wants to be called.
It doesn't matter to me. I'm just not gonna call. I'm just not gonna feed into your bullshit.
That's fine. Cool. All right, there you go. Right there. That's it. So you have that option, just like that other person has that option.
Yeah, sure. Listen,
what he's saying, what Didi is saying. Hold on, Didi. Hold on. What Didi's trying to say is that people are now dictating that we have to accept and call them this.
You
at
don't.
the same time. What do
See,
you mean?
no
one's saying that no one's saying that you have to do anything.
Yeah.
Let me ask you. So
society is saying that.
Hold on.
Society
pause for a
is
second.
saying that.
Gentlemen, pause for a second. You're now telling me, Jules, that if I pull up an article and I read about Leah Thomas, you're telling me they're not going to be calling her a she in that article? So now they're making me read that she's a she, knowing that I know it's a man.
Well, the person that writes the article can write whatever they want.
But no, they can't. Oh my God, I can't believe you just said that. I can't believe you just said that. Are you for real?
Hold on, Didi. Slow down.
Are you for real?
What I'm saying is, hold on. This person that is writing this article is dictating or I guess explaining to the public. That's how we feed. That's how we get our information. So now we're accepting this information as fact.
You're not even. Hold on. Tunde, you're missing the most important part. You're missing the most important part. If you write that article about Leah, and you do not refer to her, I'm coming on your side for a second. If you do not refer to her as a woman, you will lose your job. You will never write another article that would be published ever again. What do you mean?
I don't know that. I don't
know
that to be true.
I will say this.
To be true. But what I'm saying, whoever's writing the article is just respecting what that person wants to be called.
Right. I understand. I understand that part. But now that person has that sense of power to now dictate how that person is going to be addressed, because they're sending that message to everybody.
No. Yeah, but you as a person, as Didi is going to say, I'm not going to call that person that.
Mm-hmm.
You have that right.
But the thing is, they keep on referring to that person as a her, as a she.
That person is respecting that person. You do not have to respect you do not have to respect that other person's thought process.
Again,
why does it have to do with respect, though? Why does it have to do with respect?
I think that's false, because if you go up to that person face to face and you call that person who's transitioning a male and they want to be called a female, you're an outcast.
Absolutely, 100%.
So I will say this: it depends.
Guaranteed.
It depends. So I will say this:
okay.
Two points. Like, one is in large parts, I agree with Didi in that right now there's a huge backlash whenever you do say anything. Now, I will say, if you're a newspaper, you just don't want to deal with it. You're like, if you do that, I'm not going to deal with it because you're going to get backlash. But then you have like if you look at Harry Potter, you know, the author J.K.
Rowling, yeah.
He's currently very, very, very famous for her turfness, the thing, the trans exclusionary.
Yeah, I've heard about that. Yeah.
Like, that's what they call her, because she's expressing, like, basically a point, but maybe a little more respectfully than Didi, that women are not the same as trans women, or more specifically, trans women are not exactly the same as women. right? And that's her thing. And she has the money because she's a billionaire to withstand it. But like, you know, they have excluded her from, say, any of the Harry Potter promotion and all that stuff, right? And you know, it's fascinating that, you know,
But you just made my point though. You just said they
hold on.
her.
Yeah.
You said they agreed with that.
You know, I agree with that. But here's the thing, and this is like Didi said, in 20 years you'll change your mind. But here's the thing. I've been holding this belief for 20 years because 20 years ago is when I first started rooming with this trans
with the other people, yeah.
My roommate. And I'm a Christian. Like I'm a serious Christian. You notice I didn't swear. Like I hold it seriously. But no matter what I think, like even with homosexuality, I'm a Christian. Right? Like I have certain ideas, but at the same time, I recognize there's a difference between what I think is moral for me, what I think is moral for the other person, and where that hill is to die on. And in particular, like like the question you ask yourself is like, okay, when does it matter? Like so for Didi, like aside from not calling them by the pronoun they prefer, like how does it change your interaction with someone? If you meet a trans person, I assume you're not just gonna like be rude to them just to be rude to them. You may not call them the pronoun they want, but you're gonna be polite to them. You're gonna be respectful as any random person. Would that be fair to say?
Very fair to say. If you heard me, you heard me earlier, I treat everybody as a human. It doesn't matter your color, it doesn't matter your gender, it doesn't matter what you choose to be. I just can't allow you to insult my intelligence by trying to convince me of something other than what I know, right? And this goes for any topic in life.
But that's my point. Is it doesn't like at no point did I say that like they're the same and they're no different. Like my point in saying it is like if you get caught on the pronoun hill, you die on the pronoun hill and you don't do anything, right?
I'm ready to die.
You are. But the reason I'm not willing to die on that hill is because I recognize there are other more important things. For instance, like I don't think that it's exactly the same and we should pretend that it is and there's no difference, right? There is a difference. And that's just not something that you can reasonably debate. But the problem is it does happen and people are very and this is the problem I have a lot of the times with people on the left. Now I'm center, probably more left than anything, but like there's a lot of problems with kind of if you're not perfect, you shouldn't speak up. And this happens even in feminism. Forget like transgendered stuff. Like even if you say something that's not exactly accurate to how people come at you. People on the left really attack everyone if you're not exactly how you're transphobic because you think that having a period matters. Like that's an actual belief. Like it's weird, but it's an actual belief, right? So
Can I touch on something? You've mentioned a couple of times Christianity and you're very Christian and so on and so forth. You know what's something that we never do as humans in life? If you are Christian and you do believe in God and so on and so forth, I've tried to leave God out of it because then I'm voicing my own personal beliefs. But I'm just touching on this because you've mentioned Christianity a few times, right? Now, God knows
just to say where I'm coming from, not
sure. And I'm telling you where I'm coming from also as a Christian, right? So Christian to Christian, I'm having this conversation. If somebody may have different beliefs, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, right? But Christian to Christian, I'm coming at you for you to think about something, right? And very so often we're very selfish. Humans are very, very selfish, and we never think for 1 second about our Creator and what He thinks about what we do, how we think, and how we live, and so on and so forth. And I often sit down and I often think about how God would, how He looks on us, right, as our Father, and the same way I would look at my child if I raised my child a certain way with certain expectations, and they did the contrary to how I raised them, how I thought kind of very, very similar, right? And I say to myself, in the transgender world, right? If you're Christian and your belief is that God is the Almighty creator of heaven and earth, he knows all that is seen and unseen, and God is perfect and he's all knowing, but yet God creates man, and man decides one day he wakes up, God made a mistake with me. He gave me manly attributes. God made a mistake. I'm not a man. I'm a woman. Now I'm going to play God because God made a mistake. He didn't know what he was doing when he created me. Now I'm going to change what God's mistake was, right? And I'm going to correct what God's mistake was. I know everything. I'm more powerful than God. So I'm going to make that change. And guess what? That's not the biggest trick of all. I'm going to fool everybody around, right? They know I'm a man. But guess what? I'm going to fool them into thinking that I'm a woman. Guess what? I'm going to have them call me a woman. Isn't that the biggest trickery of all? As a Christian, do you sit there and think of how God feels, of how man is changing what he created?
So let me answer that question by asking you a different question.
Sure.
If someone's born without an arm, did God take that arm away?
Yes. That was God's will.
So they shouldn't use a prosthetic.
Sure they can. That's an aid.
Why?
Because it's an aid.
Okay. Then what do you think of people who are old term hermaphrodite or intersex?
God created them like that. God created hermaphrodites. I mean, I used the word deformity before. You guys got all, tingly about it, but we're not all perfect. Do you know what makes us look different?
Okay. So the point
you know that having our eyes maybe too wide or too close, or our nose too big or too small, or our lips too big or too small, those are all forms of possible deformities, right? But now I get you're talking about physical. We're talking about when you want to talk about organs.
No,
right?
See, your premise is God made you this way. Why are you changing?
Why are you changing it? Exactly.
And the problem with the question is that
Yes.
it presumes that everything that happens in biology is some grand plan. And this is a theology issue. That is a grand plan that God made you so that you didn't have eyes, or you couldn't hear, or that you're going to stay the mental age of a 5-year-old. The problem is that's not a Christian perspective. That's not a Christian perspective, and because the world.
What do you mean by that?
I don't want to get in too much into the weeds of Christianity, because
why is that not a Christian perspective? I didn't understand what you meant by that.
Because the idea that things in the physical world are a thing, and God wanted him that way, is not a biblical perspective.
So what is? So if God made you with a deformity, what is?
God didn't make you with a deformity. That's the problem with the question.
Okay.
That's not what happens.
It's not God's will. It wasn't God's will.
No. When someone, okay, sorry to get into this, but I'll do it briefly. Jesus was asked, this man who was blind, who sinned, his father or himself? And what Jesus' response was, neither his father nor him sinned, but that so the will of God may be done. This is too much into the weeds of theology, but the basic lesson of that is God's plan, love, whatever, is not defined by the things that go right or wrong in the world. That isn't how God is decided. That isn't how his will is decided. It doesn't mean it's good or bad. It's neither good nor bad. Someone who's born to die at 2 because of cancer isn't because God wanted them to die at 2. That's not what happens.
Okay.
So because I think your point is is transgendered, they're this way, you're changing them, and as a Christian, what do you think? And the point with that is, it's the physical world. We deal with the physical world, right? If you want to talk Christianity, it's it basically is like, to me, if you're not a Christian, as in you're not seriously debating whether or not Jesus is God, then there's no point in debating whether or not this is God's will, right? When I was talking to my roommate back in the, she was not Christian, right? So for me to debate whether or not
you can't
for me
have
to
that conversation with them.
no, because it's pointless, right?
Right,
Like,
absolutely.
what's the point? Like, what's the
Absolutely.
point? Like, if they don't like whether they became like, put it differently, if every trans person stopped being trans, they don't magically get to heaven. Like, that's not how things work, right? So I'm not going to judge them on my beliefs because it doesn't really change.
But you didn't answer my question, though. But you didn't answer my question. My question to you was, as a Christian, and I asked you that question because multiple times you brought Christianity into it. So as a Christian, right, do you think it's okay for you to support that kind of belief, even though you know your belief and and your belief dictates otherwise, right?
Define support, because you never asked me what I think
Support.
about it.
Easy support is a man telling you that he's a woman, and you say, okay, you're a woman, cool, no problem, I'll start calling you she. That is support.
So the question is, what exactly then?
If you're a Christian man,
Uh-huh.
you're
What
okay
comes
with
first?
supporting somebody else's decision over
Yeah,
your belief.
I'm
First, what's more powerful for you?
No. It's like, okay. As a Christian, I think that doing gay things, not being gay, is sinful. Right?
Sorry, say that again.
As a Christian, doing gay things is sinful.
Okay.
That's because I believe in the Bible and so forth. Now, that doesn't change how I behave towards them. I don't shun them.
You shouldn't condemn them. You shouldn't condemn them.
I stay friends.
Correct.
Because at the end of the day, it doesn't really change my interaction with them.
Sure.
Right? The same thing with the two that I roomed with. What I thought might happen with God and them doesn't magically change anything between me and them.
Sure, absolutely. But there's a thing.
The fact that I call them she doesn't magically change anything. And more importantly, the reason
it does to them. It does to them.
And here's the more important reason why.
Support is very powerful, my brother. Support is very powerful.
Let me tell you.
If I think I could fly, and all three of you support me and tell me I could fly, I'm jumping off of that cliff and I'm going to try and fly. If I tell you I can fly and all three of you tell me with conviction you cannot do it, you are going to drop and you're going to die and you're going to kill yourself. It's going to have an impact on my thoughts. I may still do it, but it's going to put me in a different state of mind because I don't have your support.
See, the problem with what you're saying is you're dealing in the hypothetical, and I lived it.
Why is that hypothetical?
Because what I'm telling you is, like, I was Christian when
you were.
I am and still was, and my point is, like, when Lenore.
I am and still was. I'm confused, brother.
No, he's going back to a story about his past.
Yeah.
Go on.
Oh, okay.
So, I was Christian. I was openly Christian. I was talking to Rob about Christianity and this and that and the other. And so then Rob tells me, I want to be a woman. And this is, again, 2000, 2001, 2002. I can't remember exactly. And this is something that, like, wasn't in the media. I had no knowledge about. I'm like, it was trippy, right? Like, this conversation would not have occurred 20 years ago, right? My beliefs didn't change, right? The pronoun I used changed. We didn't stop talking about it. Like, I remember one point, anyways, I think we're getting way off topic, but the upshot of it is this.
I'm out.
Yeah, so let me just finish with this.
Let's wrap it up, yeah.
If the thing that didn't matter then and now is that Lenore knew my beliefs before and after they came out to be. And I was able to have frank conversations about what it means to be trans for her, what it means in the society, what trans people accept, what they don't. And part of the problem, this is why I can have a little bit of insight more than most, and it gets back to, if you want to get back on topic, is that there is a problem in society, and Didi, you point this out, which is that we think that if we just accept everything, that everything has to be the same, and that's problematic, especially when it comes to sport, when it's a competition and they have clear advantages, right? Mm-hmm. Unless they transition before they hit puberty, they have clear advantages. Leah Thompson transitioned 2019 after was already a competitive swimmer. If you want to have these conversations, like, and you want to have them such that people will listen to you, I was just saying to Didi, is like, you need to, like, at least not open, like, because they think it's disrespectful, not openly disrespect them. It doesn't mean you have to change your mind, but I think this is to Didi's point, though, I think this is going to be something that we will it will get worse before it gets better. Like,
This is true.
Like what I said is, like, right now all the Olympic people do is accept the testosterone levels as the only marker, except for the fact that if you train, I think you guys like, at least a couple of you trained, like taking testosterone is a training thing. It's a long-term thing. It helps you improve, and the benefits you gain don't magically evaporate because you stop taking it, right? Like, that's not how it works, and that shouldn't be how it works with transgender folks. It should not be included. If they had transitioned like when at the height of their career, they would have broke every single female record in every event they did, right? And that would have been preposterous, right? Because they were the greatest male athlete. Forget women; they were the greatest male athlete in the 70s, right? So, like, my apologies for really veering off topic, but
no, we all went off topic.
You have to. I feel like it's justified. You have to go off topic to get to the bottom of things. That's how I came into this conversation, because I feel the problem is the line. We shouldn't even get there. This shouldn't be a topic. We shouldn't have gotten here, right? And I feel like the reason why we're here is because no lines are drawn, right? And part of, I think, drawing a line is checking somebody back into reality, right? I think this is one of the biggest things that we do not do. We do it for other things, right? Pedophilia, right? It's something that we've declared. It's a mental instability, right? We've declared that. Okay, so we're not accepting of that. Why? Why not? It's the same. It's all the same. It's all the same. It's not normal, right? It's not right, but we choose when to draw lines and when not to draw lines, right? And we're talking about mental instabilities, and the color of a man's skin was brought into comparison. And I'm very shocked, and I'm very scared that you made that kind of comparison, because it's not like, it's not how we're born. How we are born is different from how we choose to want to be, right? That's two different things. And regardless of how we are born, we're all human, and we all deserve to be treated like humans. Doesn't matter your color, doesn't matter your gender, doesn't matter your sexuality. Does not matter. But what a human is not going to do is try to convince me of otherwise, of what I know, because then that's a problem, right? You trying to live, I've said that before, I said that earlier on, live your life. Do what makes you happy. That is the biggest gift God gave to us as mankind, is the ability to make ourselves happy, right? Do what makes you happy. I have no problem with that. It doesn't impact me. The only problem I have is the minute you try to convince me, you're inflicting me, you're attacking me. The minute you feel that you have the ability to change my mind, convince me, get me to accept. These are all things you're forcing on me, right? That's where I have a problem. Live your life. Do what you want to do. What you want to do. You want to be. You're a man. You want to be a woman. Be a woman. You're a man. You want to sleep with a man. Do it. You're a man. You want to sleep with 10 women. Go ahead and do it. Right? Those things don't impact me. But don't be a man. Don't be a man who is sleeping with 10 different women a week and try to convince me that that's right. It's not. It's not. Oh. If you're single, that's okay. But if you're married and you're in a committed relationship and you're cheating on your significant other, right? Don't try to convince me that it's okay because you choose it's okay. Doesn't mean that I'm going to accept it. I still accept you as my friend, as a human. But I'm not going to accept your choices. I don't have to accept your choices. That's the will. That's the freedom that God gave me. I have the right to choose what I want to believe and what I want to accept. So do you.
Okay. All right.
Amen.
Well, I had to throw an amen in.
I had to throw an amen, bro.
Hey,
I put God first. I put God first before
anything,
any thoughts in my mind.
This is a topic that's going to be, blown up for the next, like I said, 20 years. It's going to come up maybe next week, maybe 2-3 weeks from now. You know that.
Sure.
So this is going to be
no lines
ongoing.
are drawn, of course.
Exactly. So it's just a matter of just being open to talk about it and make sure everybody's on the same page of being respectful for everybody's choices and decisions on what they accept, respect, and force or speak on when it comes to this type of topic. But I want to thank my guest this evening. It's been a good 2 hours and 20 minutes going on strong with this thing. Again, it's late. Feel free to continue the conversation on the Facebook page, on the YouTube page. We're there. Other than that, we'll come back to you again next week with another episode. We don't know what we talk about, but if you guys have a topic that you want to talk to us about, hit us up on the Facebook, hit us up privately, and we'll definitely do that again. With that, I'm going to thank Didi, Salam, and my co-host Jules for another great show. You guys.